Today we have Aaron Judy, Chief of Innovation AI at Maricopa County, Clerk of Superior Court. Aaron, welcome to TechTables.
I appreciate it. Sorry for the delay. Missed our last opportunity.
And why didn't you just tell the audience why you were delayed? Why didn't you come on TechTables?
I was hours away, and then my wife and I had a baby. So I literally texted you from the hospital. It's not going to happen. I remember saying that morning, unless this baby shows up, I'll be there. And son of a gun, it showed up.
Yeah, it was when we were very happy that you had your priorities in order and that you were with the child and not at a live podcast event. The nice part about shooting today's episode and recording it is that everything's already done. I already love it. We already got the podcast title. I don't normally write the podcast title until after the event or until after the podcast, but for the live events, I typically will write them before. So today's podcast title is Q Branch, Building What's Possible. Obviously, Q Branch refers to James Bond 007. I'm a big fan. The R&D division within MI6. Your division within Maricopa County Superior Court is structured on the innovation side that allows for POCs and exploration of what's possible. I absolutely love that. Now, but before we jump in today, Aaron, why don't you walk us through Q Branch, which I love being a huge James Bond fan, and maybe just how you're thinking about Maricopa County Superior Court on the innovation side.
Q Branch, we go by a few things. Coincidentally, Q Branch is the plaque that's actually the nameplate on my office door downtown. It says Q Branch on it. Q Branch, Skunkworks, the House of Ideas. These are all AKAs, aliases, and monikers. Our role is we saw this technology. We follow technology, emerging technology very closely. We may come up with an idea on our own, or somebody may come to us and say, hey, we have a need. We need to fill this gap. We need a solution to do X, and we may jump in there. Sometimes we sit in other people's meetings and just absorb and listen in and say, hey, we could do that differently. We pair our technologists with subject matter experts. Our technologists, we try to keep pure in that we don't saddle the innovation group with operations. I'll elaborate on the operations there just a little bit because there's also a caveat to that. But we focus on the technology. I am not a court expert. Don't tell anybody I said that. I am not a court expert. I'm a technologist, but I'm paired with an innovation delivery manager. He is my sounding board. He is a subject matter expert on everything that has to do with the court. He will tell me if I'm crazy in advance. He's the canary, right? He's also the individual that start contacting teams for change management, right? Hey, these things are coming. We're thinking of these technologies. He will organize focus groups. He will build recipient teams, the catching team that's going to start leveraging a technology. He's built our contact center, for example, who curates and is the human handoff for our conversational AI, as one example.
Yeah. I love that. Today's podcast episode is sponsored by SentinelOne. SentinelOne redefines cybersecurity by pushing the boundaries of autonomous technology with its Singularity XDR platform. SentinelOne is the leader in endpoint protection and beyond. And thank you for SentinelOne for showing up for the live podcast event in Phoenix. Love to have you there. Loved Steve Bell, who was there. And you can learn more about SentinelOne at sentinelone.com. All right, now we're going to hit off all of our podcast questions I'm very excited about. Let's start with RPA, Robotic Process Automation. Recorded a great podcast episode with Christian Ettel, who's the head of AI and cloud at the state of Texas, where we dived into what the state of Texas is working on with its cloud and AI COEs. That's, I believe, episode 40. And before we jump into the three big AI initiatives that you're working on, could you maybe just give us a baseline difference between RPA and AI? How are they different? And then how does AI supercharge RPA?
Years ago, there was no such thing as RPA. There was just automation. We were writing scripts to do things. And that was our first automation. When we started making chat bots, chat ops, those types of things, we just plugged our automations into that. And that became what we thought was automation. Today, RPA is a standalone system by definition. I think Gartner calls it that, a standalone system dedicated to either event-driven or AI-driven automation, predefined processes, or they have a great definition of it. Really, we think about it as the last mile. And when we get into some of the projects, I can talk about that. But for us, RPA, it has to be headless. Right? If I asked you to press an extra button today and all your work will be done, you'll be like, oh man, I got to press this extra button. It sounds like more work. You don't want to do it. And ownership. Who's going to do it? Do you own your RPA? Those are the two biggest hurdles, is its intrusiveness, and who owns it.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I am a huge fan of automation and of scripts. Anything I can automate and do in my own business, I am doing. And trust me, there's a lot of automation in the background that no one sees. I love that. So why do you think there's a lot of like fear regarding technologies like RPA or AI or ML, you name it? Why do humans themselves close themselves off to the art of the possible? This might be more related to the end user than the technologists per se, but the end users are still there.
I think you and I have talked before. Fear is an institution of culture. How you celebrate and recognize failure, it will structure fear and your tolerance for risk, right? Ultimately, obstacles, expectations, obligations, explainability, ownership, all these little bits are what stop people. Obstacles, if you don't have the skilled talent in your shop to do some of these things, it becomes an obstacle. Expectations and obligations, you want to do cool stuff, but this judge is expecting you to deliver this modification to the system, or this customer wants you to do something. You can't go do the cool thing and deliver it first, or else somebody's going to be mad that you didn't deliver their thing. Explainability, if it is a black box, now mind you, it has to have some kind of productization, right? I have to be able to touch it and look and show everybody, even a layman, to be able to access it. But if I can't explain how it works, I'm not going to put the risk of my public career. I don't want to be in the headlines for this thing spouting hate at somebody. And ownership, right? Who is ultimately going to be in charge? If something is said by a conversational AI, who owns that? I'll leave it there.
Those are some really great questions. Now let's dive into the 3 initiatives. So conversational AI, AI system reliability, and computer vision and AI are what you're working on. You maybe just touch upon those 3 right now.
Our cloud contact center that we've got an omni-channel conversational AI, Clio, who's plugged into the web, into Amazon's voice-first devices, Google's. She's got text, email, you name it. We try to plug her into it. She's in Facebook. We have human handoff for many of those channels. So if she can't answer your question, she will get somebody that can. But our biggest venture into that right now is certifying our voice channel. We want to replace our traditional press 1, press 6 IVR system with just a natural human experience. What can I help you with? What can I answer for you? That means we have to enable certain services to be voice first. I'd like to look up a payment, those types of things. You need to lead individuals through those experiences. Our SRE, Alfred. SRE is a system reliability engineer. Traditionally, this is a human being that would receive alerts, triage incidents with your public-facing services or website or something to that effect. In this case, we have an AI that receives our alert emails, tries to act upon those emails, and will send its results or necessity for remediation on to the on-call human for review if necessary. And right now, we're looking at expanding its capabilities into other systems, letting it babysit our mission critical systems. So if something happens with them, it can at least try to triage that first line of support. And then our last one, which is probably the biggest one, it's going to be huge savings for us, is our intelligent capture project. It's a 2-phase project. The first phase is supposed to realize something like 33% in labor reduction, barcoding, and human sorting. And phase 2, something like an additional 40%, which is profound when you think about it. That's one of our core competencies is document management and fiduciary for the courts themselves. So that's our main line of what we do. We are looking at using Nintex to drive RPA, that last mile, what we were talking about a minute ago. I want Nintex to drive a website that there is no API for, that a human traditionally has to drive and make decisions based on these inputs. We're going to use what we have right now is a quorum of AI that agree on the document. Several pieces of AI look at the same document and say, I see this as a case number. We both agree that's the case number. And that helps with the routing. Once we've extracted all those features and have all the key components, we're going to input those into another system and relieve a great portion of human effort.
Yeah, there are a lot of really fantastic use cases from you're on the ground with the court system. I'm also thinking like in the medical field, stuff where there's like crazy, an unbelievable amount of documents, specifically like excessive and duplicative like documents everywhere. Every time I go to the doctor's office and show my health insurance card, which, by the way, in California, you can have on your iPhone, but no doctor ever takes it. And you still have to hand over your plastic piece, and then they scan it and make a photocopy of it and then file it. And it didn't change from the 2 weeks ago where I showed up to the same place.
That's weird.
It's really weird. But creating all of that, and especially like in the court system, I can only imagine, is probably create some serious headaches for humans. That labor reduction and document management is huge. And so if you can get that off the plate where then the human can actually focus on the more important tasks, that'll be huge for Maricopa County Superior Court. I'm curious, like, what innovations have the most promise from what you're seeing in the gov tech world right now? Simply, what excites you the most?
I would have to say composable architectures, Legos. That's what I think.
It's not the Iron Man suit. It's not the Iron Man suit.
Actually, kind of is in a way. Because I use the software from it to build R2 or R4. Mine's R4. Anyway, composable architecture. That means I can take the best of breed of technologies and stack them like Legos. If I decide tomorrow that there is a better product out there, I'll just unplug it and plug in a new one. That's something when you're looking for technologies now, look for those with great interoperability, well-documented APIs, a lot to offer, a good community behind it. Computer vision, that's what our document management thing, that's really what we're looking at, is having a computer look at and understand what a document is. That's not just the words, that's the shape of it, where the header is. That's fingerprinting the document, right? Where are these layouts? If there's a picture on there, yes, is this a horse or is it a cat? That kind of thing. Deeper into, it's a hard problem to solve. Does this document contain human input? It's easy to pass a document to a service and get the characters off of it, but to say binarily yes or no, does this document have human input on it, is actually harder than you think it is. And that's one of the things we're trying to solve now, because if I can solve that, I don't have to hand off to more expensive cloud services. If I can solve that locally. It doesn't have any human input. Don't give it to the handwriting service.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what ideas do you have that aren't prototypes but could have promise?
I've got this lofty idea for an augmented reality campus experience with indoor navigation. He's got some great products for indoor navigation, and I would like to see. Imagine you're late for court, right? This could be your freedom, your livelihood, your children, right? You need to be there. Some other circumstances made you late. Imagine having your phone, and this all stems from experience I had with the customers. The gentleman came through security only to get his effects back and say, is there courtroom B in here? And no, there's no courtroom B in this building. Imagine if he was able to hold his phone up and have a waypoint pointing down the street saying 3 blocks up on the left, that's the building you want. And then when he gets inside, he or she, they get inside and are able to navigate the building down the hall, make a right. I'm at my courtroom. That's significant. That's changing the world right there.
Yeah, I really like this. I've not had to walk through a courtroom, but I can picture a similar analogy would be like with business services where for example, in Santa Barbara, I have to go file a document with the city or I've got to pay taxes. And this is the very thing where I am trying to make a payment because the city of Santa Barbara doesn't take online payments. And tell me about it. I know. I am walking through a dungeon to find this room. This example would be fantastic if I could actually take my phone out and navigate my way through the number of government offices that are in downtown Santa Barbara. This would be fantastic. So I love the augmented reality use case. I think it's pretty popular too, just with you take on the consumer side, whether that's putting IKEA furniture in your house.
Whatever the metaverse is, right?
Different shoes. Yeah, exactly. Probably is going to take some time, but I think there's definitely some promise there. Okay, my next question is from Shauna Rogers, Chief Digital and Data Officer at the State of Texas Attorney General's Office. So I had her in Austin, this is a few weeks back now, when she was actually at the live podcast event. So Shauna asked, how do you measure adoption and relevance in technology to your constituency? How do you measure what's working and what's not?
Measured use, and that is through observability from the beginning. And my secret sauce to that's New Relic. If you ever get a chance, take a look at New Relic. That is observing the application, the services behind it, the servers that they're on, and any other important infrastructure that's underneath of it. That's my easiest way. If I can say, look, it's getting used a lot, it's getting a lot of traffic, I can correlate that to value in some way. We have user personas where we try to map out what this user is as an internal, external, what their value prop might be, and I can tie those two together. So really, trust me, this is what I struggle with. This is what I have to do. So yeah, measured use and observability, those are my secret sauce.
Measured use
Now,
and observability.
I want to add to that.
Love it.
Sometimes you have to adopt the technology just for social credibility, right? You remember, let's see, back in the late 90s when 2 people in the office had email, and you were like, when is the customer ever going to email me? That's ridiculous. And now people think of our email as archaic. So there might be some of these technologies that you're like, when am I ever going to do that with the customer? It might become mainstream. That's it.
Yeah. I wasn't in the office, Aaron, because I was in school. I'm a little bit young. No, with email, I was not at the time. By the time I hit, email was, I think, pretty regular, pretty mainstream. But when I was in school, it was definitely not mainstream yet. And it was, I had the old, like originally, it was like the old AOL dial-up, right? Yeah. So this is before Google and Google Maps or anything. It was a fascinating time to have a computer, especially as a young kid. I had a ton of fun tinkering around and messing around. And
no, Tandy.
It is
Tandy
handy.
Computers. That was my first one.
Oh, Tandy. Oh, that was your first one. Nice. I'll have to go look that one up. I'm a little rusty on all the old computers now, but I only know
it's okay.
Apple.
It's all right.
Mac.
I played Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Sure.
All right, so let's wrap up our podcast with the future of digital humans. First, what is a digital human? And second, what is the business application of a digital human? Doesn't have to be necessarily with your job in the Superior Court. And then if you could talk about it, expand upon a little bit with Clio.
Digital human is a virtual avatar that represents a human as closely as possible. It may reach into what's called the uncanny valley, where it can look a little robotic or soulless, doll's eyes look. But the goal is to get a very humanistic interaction with somebody else. The more we push customers away, don't come down to the office, just use my chat service, don't use your traditional methods, we get away from the humanization of things. A lot of folks just like seeing a smile when they're on the worst day of their life. Sometimes they want to hand a paper across the counter and just have you go, oh, okay, what you're asking me isn't crazy. You get feedback at times from humans, even when you're not getting feedback. Conversely, not all generations like text. You and I were just talking about it. I was Gen X. I was one of the first texters. I was one of the first DOS users. But the generations that came before me value human face-to-face interactions. They may not like a chat bot. They may not like typing or texting things. So how do I reach those customers? Conversely, Gen Z, Gen Y and Gen Z, they want that same human video interaction. They want more immersive video interactions. And that's where digital humans come in. I am trying to figure out, what is the value of a smile? Honestly, if I can put a smile on my service, that I can talk to you and understand where you are empathically, how you're standing, how your body posture is. Are you sad? If I ask you for a death certificate, don't keep smiling at me. Don't keep with the same boring text. Have a solemn look. Feel sorry for me. We're humans. We want that. Most of what we exchange in communication isn't coming out of our mouths. And ultimately, that's where I want to go with Clio. My problem is the value prop there. I created a couple different prototypes with a few of the very mainstream top-of-the-line technologies. Both prototypes have a digital human interface with optional chat interface and the ability to understand, because humans sway, we move in space. So it can follow you. It understands where you are. Imagine coming into a lobby. This is just my pie in the sky. Imagine coming into a lobby and being greeted instead of the person at the desk by a full body avatar. Hi, what can I help you with? I have this form. Oh, let me see that form. You need this desk over here. And then maybe it's not take a number. Maybe it is, bam, hold your phone up and take this QR code. And I've got a lot of lofty ideas. Your phone has a scanner in it that rivals a lot of 90s technology. You can automatically rectify documents and scan them in. Imagine if you had our lobby in your phone. with a digital person there that's helping lead you through that process. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great ideas. I love what you said about the risk to humanization and what is the value of a smile. This might be the most underrated question of the last, I don't know, decade of the world. And this is a fantastic question. I heard a speaker who's got a book coming out, and the book is coming out later this year in October. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
I like that.
By this guy who's like a 5-star Michelin star restaurant owner. And he gave this talk on unreasonable hospitality. I think I might have some notes on it from the conference. And it was just so good. And this is what I think about. What is the value of a smile? Because when you have an experience, if you're a citizen and you interact with the government and you have an experience, typically it's, to be honest, it's not really a good experience. Most folks that I interact and consume services with in Santa Barbara are tired, overworked, and I have empathy and perspective, so I understand that. And I try and give them a smile, actually, because what do you want? I'm like, I just want to pay you. No. And so I've got to come with the exact paperwork, like I'm filing this and that. And I think what is the value of a smile is a fantastic question. And if you could up the level where the service of hospitality is incredible and off the charts, if it's unreasonably amazing, I think it just makes for a better world and a better environment in general.
We measure customer satisfaction, even though most of our customers are probably court ordered. They're not happy to begin with, but we want their experience.
Yeah, they're not happy. Yeah, that's a great example. Another example I've thought about having before COVID, I traveled to a number of countries before. And when you land in the airport, it's actually a very handy thing is if there was something like this that you could just press English.
Yeah, and it would just be like
whatever language it is.
Your liaison that was there waiting on you to be like, okay, let's get you. Cars are over here. Food's this way.
So they have, the airport, they have the basic signs, but it's like little more detailed stuff. I need an ATM. Because the country I'm in doesn't operate on plastic, or it's not like a really high usage plastic country. Yeah. I need cash. So where's the nearest ATM? Or I need to make it to wherever I'm staying. And so I think that's one use case. I think there's always a ton of use cases.
Nestle created a digital human to help people bake cookies. Believe it or not, most of their calls are about the instructions on the back. They also had to make it a female because most of the customers prefer, apparently, to have a female baker. It's an interesting.
That is awesome. Nestle Digital. If the audience hears me typing, I'm throwing that in to look at this right now. Yeah, her name is Ruth.
She's actually named after the lady that made the recipe, if I'm not mistaken. Ruth is the original lady that made the recipe.
I love all the titles to the articles. Nestle's cookie AI looks creepy as hell, but could improve your baking. That's hilarious. That's really funny. Yeah. Do you know, I'm thinking cookie, now that you brought this in, if anyone in the audience or yourself has ever ordered HelloFresh or Blue Apron or some service like that. So it's like a food delivery service where all the ingredients are out and they give you a card to cook. If you're not that smart like me and you struggle with cooking, you take out the card and everything doesn't work because you're like, oh, I'm throwing all this together. But if I had something on my phone that could display and walk me through, YouTube's like the closest bridge to that. But even then, I'm really liking this AI opportunity. But Ruth is pretty funny. I'm going to have to go.
Let's see. Autodesk has one. There's many companies that have them now. Even Disney's experimenting with one. I got to see a preview of Ray. So it's actually Ray. It looks like her. Okay. Even her hair's waving in the wind. And you can talk and interact with her, ask her Star Wars questions. It's amazing. Clearly, I'm a Star Wars fan.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, me and Jack are huge Star Wars fans. We're dialed in. We are waiting. Our daughter went to camp, but we are waiting to watch the last Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm watching that. I'm going to make a low
when she comes back. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to check out that. I just recently went to Disneyland with Jackman, and we saw Rey in life, the human version, being chased by the stormtroopers. But I'll have to look up the digital human.
I might have gotten a preview to it.
Okay. So Awesome. This is a ton of fun. At some point, I'm going to have to stop by your offices. I want to take a photo with the Q branch plaque. That looks pretty awesome. So where can people find you, Aaron? Where do you like to hang out?
LinkedIn for
Twitter,
business stuff. If you're into nerdy things, probably Instagram, Augmented Artist. YouTube, Neverworks79. That's probably the best places. TheNeverworks.com has links to it all. TheNeverworks.com.
Awesome. Well, we'll link to that. We will link to that in the show notes. And please reach out to Aaron on LinkedIn. I'm sure he's stoked. I know I can almost guess my guy Krishna from Texas is going to want to connect with you, as he is also working on a lot of innovation, RPA, and cloud tech there.
Okay,
I'll definitely make sure to connect you guys. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. TechTables, Aaron.
Thanks, Joe.
I really appreciate it.